Okay, here we go. Week 12, final week, last push. I believe you got about 100 pages to read this week. As you might have noticed, the words per page in this particular volume aren't very large. In other words, it's 100 pages, but it's maybe not as many words as it could be or would be in a different volume. Since we've already started this text, just like other texts where I tried to keep the second and third videos on Dickens a little bit shorter, I want to try to keep this video a little bit shorter too. I pretty much told you everything you need to know about the book, its structure. I do think you should maybe pay attention to a little bit of the formatting. There are a couple interesting formatting things that are going to happen in these last 100 pages. Typically, each chapter is named after a month of the year, and just like normal chapters, it starts at the top of the page, and when it ends, and then the next chapter begins at the top of the next page, even if it leaves some white space at the end of a chapter. You'll see that stop happening for a little while, and then it'll kind of happen again. So I didn't ask you guys to think about that in the discussion boards, but it does seem to me to signal a period of destabilization for our characters, interestingly. So I don't know, maybe you can disagree with me, but do look out for that. I think you'll see that when those chapters start to not announce themselves at the top of the page as they have been doing, that you might start to think about, oh, what's going on here, with the characters. And then you'll note that I think it's the last 3 or so months toward the end of the book, they go back to normal. So something was going on there. Some kind of interesting shakeup occurs. And again, just to remind you, it's a satire. It's supposed to be dark and disturbing. And I think you'll find that it is. This book gets more violent as it goes on. You'll see, unfortunately, more depictions of incest. There's some rape aspects to some of it, so be aware of that. And there's at least one more N-word in this selection, this second half of the book. And again, as I said before, other racial epithets will make appearances and other just sort of racist ideas. And again, the writer is not necessarily racist or misogynist or anything like that. It's these characters, and part of the job of a satirist, one who writes satire, is to try to, Jonathan Swift said, to hold a mirror up to the culture, right, to society, to be like, this is what you guys look like, at least to me, right, to the writer. So, right, there's that. And I mentioned how comedies tend to be reproductive, but I did neglect to I guess also point out that just it's the spirit of like the vibe of love, right? The energy of a comedy is love driven, and it does usually end some kind of dancing, celebration, reaffirmation of love, right? Whether it's a wedding or a party, there's always like great fellow feeling. This society is going to be great. Everyone's happy now. We went through some turmoil, and yay. No spoilers, right? But you should not expect that kind of ending here from the sort of text we've been reading. In fact, this book is devoid of love, I think. I would go so far as to say not only is it devoid of love, but it is riddled with hate. So that, I guess, right, ties back into writerly choices are usually done for a purpose, right? So this book is devoid of love. It's supposed to also be like not just lacking in love, but actually containing hate, and I do believe that's why we have these racial epithets throughout. So, right, again, I think it was to a purpose. I'm only going to give you 2 discussion questions this week. Like I mentioned last week, I did decide to stick with 2. One of them has to do with these characters, so kind of building off what I asked you last week about which character did you feel the most sympathy for? Which one did you maybe trust the most? This week I'm asking more about the way the characters change You know, you do want to see some dynamism, some change in your main characters. If it were a short story, usually there's like one character who in some way changes or something is revealed about that character. But on the novel spectrum, we have space and time for more than one, sometimes several characters to develop and grow and change. And so do pay attention. I think you won't be able to miss it, but just think about the way in which these characters change, and that'll help you answer those questions. As always, I recommend you look at those questions as you read. One of the questions from last week also had to do with thinking about class. The class issue is going to keep running through the whole book, so just because you already answered that discussion question, don't stop thinking about it. It is still going to remain important. And then, yeah, hopefully it doesn't shock you too much, but brace yourself for disturbing things to occur, I suppose. And I guess that's about it. Keep working on your final papers, of course. If you have any questions about the final paper, anything specific, obviously if you write me an email and say, how do I write a paper? Like, I don't know how I can really help you too much except for giving you the broad basics. But yeah, hopefully take some lessons from your midterm, apply them to the final paper. If you want any clarity on anything I wrote on your midterm, you know, feel free to ask me. I have the hard copies of them all still sitting on my desk here. I can just thumb through them and try to figure out, maybe translate some of my markings if you need that. Otherwise, there's two more discussion boards for this week. There's a final paper. There's 100 pages left to read. And man, that's it. So hopefully you've enjoyed the semester or learned something about English literature since the Romantic period. And yeah, I guess I'll see you when I see you. You know, hopefully I enjoy your final papers as much, if not more, than you've enjoyed this class. So, all right, Hodges signing off.